for a Parks Board, Natrona County Parks Board work session. Tonight will be a public comment session for comment on the proposed rules and regulations for the County Parks Department. Can we start with a roll call up here, please?
Dave North.
Jim Miller.
Roy Buck.
Tina Cruz.
Stuart Hill.
Brooke Kaufman.
Eric Nelson.
Thank you. If I'd have everybody rise, we'll face the flag and do the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So we really don't have an agenda tonight. I'll just say that the way this meeting will go, County Attorney Eric Nelson will speak for just a moment, talk about kind of where we're at in the rules and regulations process. And then I don't think we have any other business, and then we'll just proceed with the public comment. Eric?
Mr. Chairman, Parks Board, thank you. It's my intent to just give a little bit of an introduction, kind of reiterate where we are in the process of reviewing the rules, kind of walk through in a very brief fashion some of the proposed changes, several of which I think are probably of more interest to the public than others. And then finally, do a brief overview of Rotary Park and the Bridle Trail. I think that's probably going to garner a lot of interest here this evening. We'll probably hear a lot of comments on that. First of all, our look at all of this is by no means complete. Just here recently, and shout out to our IT department and our GIS folks. We just uncovered something like 50 historical maps of the trail system, and we've been plowing through documents going clear back to the 1930s. So there's a lot of information to wade through and sort through. But really what we intend this evening to be is an opportunity to hear from the public, not only on this issue, but on all of the proposed park rules. So to that end, I've got a computer that I've got to try to navigate, and I say try. Let's see if I can do this here. Is that... So we've got one working here. There it is. So we have on the Natrona County website put up a dedicated page to this process. And you'll see on the screen that is the link to that page. And on there'll be a statement as to what we're going to try to accomplish and the legal basis for the process. It outlines the next steps that we'll have, and there's a calendar section that it gives some approximate dates when we can expect meetings to occur. I'll just tell you that if we kind of proceed as fast as intended, we're not looking at the BOCC to consider any adoption of rule changes probably until the first meeting in May. Depending on how the process goes, that could even get pushed back a meeting till the end of May. I think the intent is to try to do this as diligently and as transparently as possible. So in an abundance of caution, we'll be holding as many public forums like this as needed. I think after tonight, we'll be promulgating an online survey to garner yet more public input. On this website, you'll also see there'll be an opportunity to submit written comments electronically, and I believe that there's even a discussion forum that you can discuss, hopefully in a civil and polite manner, different views with regard to the rules. So just wanted to start out by pointing that out. And so again, we've had 2 work sessions with the park board where we worked through some of the minutia and came up with these proposals that will solicit input from you all tonight. I think the intent is then to issue a survey, potentially have another town hall depending on the interest, and then most likely at the March park board meeting, there'll be on the agenda for potential action to recommend initiation of formal rulemaking under the Wyoming Administrative Procedures Act. That will then trigger a 45-day public formal comment period, which will culminate in a public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners. And again, the earliest that we see that potentially happening is the first meeting in May. So that being said, I wanted to take just a brief second to go through just a couple of points here in the proposed rule changes that I think will be of interest. And really the first, so there's a lot of cleanup, I would call it, within here, but the first substantive additions are in section 3. We've added definitions of electric bicycle and fat tire bicycle. Certainly didn't, what did I do? No, it's okay. There's the map. There we go. So those are substantive changes in the definition section. Kind of scrolling back down, we've added some additional rules and regulations with regard to drone operations. So I think that's something we would like to hear some public feedback on as well, whether they should be allowed in county parks, and if so, under what parameters. And again, I'm scrolling pretty fast here, so don't expect you to necessarily read every word. Again, there were some stylistic changes. We changed the Parks Director title, so that's been changed throughout. So you'll see some cleanup, things like that. But really, kind of the big thing that I saw next was in section 20, special areas, Rotary Park, and in this, some of my redlining was taken out. So as the current proposal stands, Rotary Park would remain a day use area only. Currently, it is open year-round. The proposal would be to allow it to be open from November 15th through March 15th. However, those seasons could be extended or shortened at the discretion of the park director based on conditions. We've changed from dawn to dusk from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. Of course, now this is predicated on summer hours, but to have a little more certainty with the hours of operation. And then, of course, probably the big issue with regard to Rotary Park and the bridle trail is whether or not there will be bicycle use allowed on the trails within Rotary Park and on the bridle trail. So those are really, I would say, kind of the main issues. Certainly we welcome and would certainly want other feedback if there are areas that need to be addressed and aren't, or if there are areas that are addressed in a manner that you think should be changed. We want to hear that as well. Now, let's see if I can change this and go to the map. Hey, there you go. So, I want to give a little bit of an overview of Rotary Park and the bridle trail system. And again, this is a work in process, And what I would say is that as we continue to flesh out pertinent documents, we've decided we'll try to post them on the website so that there's full transparency. So what you see in kind of the pinkish color is the current, I guess, location of the bridle trail or the trail system through Rotary Park and the bridle trail system. And I would just preface that by saying in 2011, there was a survey of the trail that was completed by an outside survey firm, and those data points were given to the county. And our mapping department was able to plot this map based on those data points. So it likely does represent the actual position of the trail. It may or may not represent where the trail should be legally. So, and this is pretty hard to see because there's a lot of detail, and I know it's very small, but so up here is Rotary Park, yeah, the north end. And so the first issue I think that we have to talk a little bit about, and the Parks Board and the county needs to give some consideration to, is how we define Rotary Park. So Rotary Park itself was deeded to the Rotary Club back in the 30s, and subsequently was deeded to the city of Casper. In the mid-1960s, the county entered into a lease agreement with the city for management of Rotary Park. And the Rotary Club has maintained through those documents the ability to co-manage Rotary Park. And when here in the 2000s, when that property was deeded to the county, those rights were retained within the deed, including a reverter clause to the Rotary Club should it be used for anything other than a public park. And so since that time, however, the Natrona County has acquired other parcels. And so when we talk about what is Rotary Park, what is the bridle trail, I think it does matter because whatever Rotary Park is determined to be, that permits the Rotary Club to have some legal standing to participate in the decision-making on what goes on in that area. And as a frame of reference, we did receive written comments from them indicating that the Rotary Club was not in favor of bicycle usage on the Rotary Park trail system. So how far that extends, I think, it depends on how we, in the rules, and how we legally define Rotary Park, and whether the bridle trail system would be a separate county park. So beyond that, the trail, as you can see, it crosses various parcels of land that have different ownership. Natrona County has purchased several parcels, but in addition, the trail crosses privately owned property, and there's a number of those parcels over which the county has negotiated express easements. So in October of 2014, over land owned by the Pauline Talbert Revocable Trust, the county received a trail easement which, quote, allows an easement for the construction, maintenance, repair, and use of a recreational trail over and across the following land. And so I'll see if I can work this, but let's see here. So this is, I believe, the Talbert property, and so you can see where the trail goes here. So we've got an express, the county has an express easement there. In addition, in May of 2015, there was a express easement negotiated and executed with Bob Price. And so, and it tracks the same language. It's a trail easement allowing an easement for the construction, maintenance, repair, and use of a recreational trail over and across the following land. And so here's the Price property, and you can see here where the trail goes over part of that. Dalton property, that an express easement was granted to the county in October 2nd of 2012. Had a little bit different language, and that language allowed a 20-foot easement for non-motorized traffic. Let's see if I can find this now. It's hard to. There it is. Yeah. So right here, yeah, I'm sure some of you know this stuff better than I do, but yeah, so that crosses here. So I think there are two areas that I've identified primarily where express easements do not currently exist, and that is across this large swath of property owned by Michael Reed. I'll zoom out here so you can maybe get a little bit of a sense of that property there. So quite a bit of the trail system goes across the Reed property. So the green boundary here is the boundary of north of which the county owns that. And so there currently there are not express easements for this trail system. And I won't get into all the various legal theories that can be espoused to establish those trails. But I will say that, there's been conversations dating back to 2012 with the Reeds, and I think that that is something that they're amenable to negotiating that access. Of course, the scope of that access then would be dependent upon those negotiations. The other, I think, area that I was unable to find any express easements, I don't think that they exist, is on the Chrisman property here. It's a slightly, so you can see a little bit where there's kind of the pink trail comes off of the county-owned property, a little bit over the corner here, and then there's a different color along the roadway, and it's, gosh, what is it called? It's called the Davis Way Trail. So I have not seen any express grants of easement along these trails. So again, won't delve into the various arguments both for and against their existence. I think that's probably beyond the scope of what we can accomplish here tonight. But there are no express easements, and so in order to get something express, you would need to enter into negotiations. And there have been discussions and so forth. There are a couple of other areas where you see little bits of the trail that go across property lines. Here, you can see a little part here that goes onto the Jung property. I'm unaware of any express easement that would allow that. There's been some discussion here on the south end of the property between the Reeds and the Toops property, whether or not the trail goes across on the Toops. I don't believe, I've not seen anything in the county records that would indicate that the county is claiming that any part of it would go on the Toops property. So I think that's probably a little bit of a loose end, but needs to be probably sewn up. Kind of the last issue, and again, is kind of a work in progress, is so you had a platted subdivision up here, and as you can see, the way the trail is indicated, it goes through some of that platted area. There is different ownership for some of these lots. So that's, again, an issue I think that needs to be resolved. There's, of course, been discussions on that, but again, probably too much detail to get into that, other than to note that that's an outstanding issue. So the last thing I would say, and I'm going to see if I can, do I have, yeah. So just to give you a sense, here's another map of the area, and you can see the various, zoom in so you can see a little snippet. You can see the lines that have different colors. And so various groups at some point in time in the past went out and shot in GPS coordinates of where the trail, they thought the trail exists. And each color represents what each group thought of the location of the trail. And as you can see, there's not consistency. So there probably, we probably need to look at that from a county standpoint potentially, and just to cinch up exactly where the trail exists. And then finally, I would just add, I think you see in the county-owned property specifically, there's been some trail construction, for lack of a better word, people going off trail where other trails have popped up. And, those just aren't represented here, but that may or may not exist. So we would probably, from a enforcement standpoint, need to look at that as well. So that's really kind of my prepared presentation tonight. I certainly realize that it doesn't cover every in and out, but hopefully that against that backdrop, the board would welcome comments, and certainly, and I'll just state this, whatever direction that the county goes with regard to the rules has to be in accordance with the legal rights of the county to do it. So as we hear various comments, please keep that in mind, that we're certainly aware of that. So Mr. Chairman, unless the board has any questions for me, I think that concludes my presentation.
Eric, of those easements you were talking, do any of them expressly say no bicycles? And if so, which ones?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hill, so on the ones that I specifically mentioned, so the Talbert, the Price, and the Dalton, so I did not in these easements find any restrictions. So we go back historically, and there's various easements that have restrictions that are restricted to just bridle trail usage, bridle usage, horseback riding and stuff like that. But the language that are contained in these easements that were passed or executed between 2012 and 2015 were fairly broadly worded. Easement for recreational trail, and so I think that's certainly probably subject to interpretation, but doesn't express. There was no express mention in those.
Anything else? All right, very good. Thank you, Eric. Okay, we'll come to the substance of the meeting now. So we've allowed about 2 hours to go through the comment period. As Eric mentioned, the way that we're looking at doing this is to have a verbal comment session tonight. We will have to, in the interest of getting out of here before midnight, we're going to limit those comments to 3 minutes. We'll have a timer up here. Each person who wants to come up will come to the lectern, state your name. Make sure that you're courteous. We're not going to put up with any personal attacks or anything like that. And after that, after tonight, obviously, we'll look at the necessity of doing another public comment period. I think there's a good likelihood that will happen. And we also invite written comments using the county website that Eric had up a little bit ago, Natrona County-y.gov/rules review. If you need that, just approach one of us after the meeting. We'll be happy to provide that for you. Following the written comment period, I think we're still planning on doing some kind of a web survey. So we're really looking for as much comment as we can get. So that's our purpose tonight, to elicit comment. So we're not looking for any interaction or back and forth. Just come up, state your case. If you have more than one issue that you want to speak to and you want to sit down and then come back up and talk about another issue, I have no problem with that, within reason. So having said that, we'll open it up to you, and I just want to thank you all in advance for coming and helping us through this process. Who's first? Come on, break the ice.
Hi, my name is Douglas Irvin. I live at 6835 South Rotary Park Road. First off, I'd like to thank the board for the public comment session, and I appreciate the IT folks, all the work they did with getting this information online. A few comments on the availability. In the future, getting out public notice more than 24 hours in advance of the meeting would be kind of good. That also goes for the Parks Board meetings in general. The agendas should be published early. Second, the form is great. However, it asks for a PDF version of your written comments, and I believe that's going to be challenging for some not so technically inclined users. If there's any way to have where they can just type in or cut and paste in text and submit that in bulk, that would probably be a good addition. Specific comments on the proposed rules and regulations. Regarding Rotary Park hours, being a neighbor of the park, myself and my other neighbors are concerned about after hours nighttime usage, which is usually by the not desired activities going on. And 10 o'clock closing time is way after sunset for the majority of the year. At the summer solstice, it's still an hour after the sun is set. So I would like to propose consideration for moving that up to 9 p.m. closure. Regarding the proposed winter closure, I think we should clarify whether the intent is to entirely close the park and any access would be trespass, or whether the goal is to deal with the safety concerns with vehicle access and close the parking lots. Myself and numerous other immediate neighbors, we snowshoe there all winter long and never use any of the parking lots or access such as that. So personally, I would love to not be in trespass if I was going snowshoeing there. So that's just one personal use note. Regarding the bridle trail, bicycles use has not been permitted since 2012. The county does not yet have full easements granting coverage through the entire length of the trail. I would encourage the county to pursue establishment of full easement grants so that they know what is going to be permitted and what isn't by the landowners, and before going down the road of allowing bicycles when they historically have not been allowed. Throughout the document, the Parks Board references should be replaced with BOCC and or the Parks Director, since the Parks Board is an advisory board and not a regulatory or rulemaking authority. It shouldn't have any ability to override any of the regulations. Fire shouldn't be allowed. A fire in the canyon would be catastrophic. Enforcement is an issue. The county needs to provide reasonable means in the rules and regulations for enforcement. And finally, trail cutting and use trails is a big problem due to the terrain in Rotary Park. I think we should specifically have provisions in there that would allow people that are cutting across trails to be cited and fined.
Okay.
Thank you.
We appreciate your comments. Thank you. One thing before we get another person up, I forgot. We have Tim Petrie in our midst. If you would stand up, Tim. This is our newly hired Parks Director. So he is observing tonight just to kind of get his feet wet a little bit before we throw him to the dogs. So. All right, next.
My name is Howard Chrisman. I live at 3355 Garden Creek Road. and Mr. Chairman and Parks and County Commissioners. Eric, appreciate you guys allowing us some time. My issue is trespassing on private property, safety issues that we have up on the mountain. And the proper usage of the bridle trail is a big factor. I've lived there for 34 years, and I've been working on a handshake with the Parks Department and Mike Hagler especially, Dick O'Hearn, Matt, and now Tim I met. All really good people, good intentions, but we've procrastinated for a long time, and I think it's about time to do something. And I've been working, periodically on the trail myself, on my property. I've allowed people to come up on the property. We've actually fixed some areas so they weren't quite as dangerous. Although I have had, periodically, I've taken 3 people to the hospital. So that's one issue that I have as far as the safety issue. I've taken 3 people. It's my liability, and they auger in over the handlebars. I still got to take them to the hospital. And a young girl hit a few years ago, 3 years ago, I think, by a bicyclist. It wasn't the bicyclist's fault, because I actually saw it happening. It happened right on the corner of our property. But nevertheless, it did happen. Didn't have anybody to monitor. Didn't have anybody to be able to get a hold of to get an emergency vehicle up there. And once again, we had to take them to the hospital in a rush deal. Now, the father was down at the park waiting for the family of this young lady. He couldn't get up to our place because he didn't know how to use the road. And so we were involved with it. Once again, it's still a liability issue. So I've been waiting for repairs on the trail for a long time. I've been waiting for signage. I've been waiting for fencing to keep people off the, on the road in the proper area in order to keep the bridle trail to the hiking, the equestrian, so we don't have a bunch of train wrecks with horses, and keep it to the usage that it was intended. The bicycles, they never were in the intention to be bicycles up there. You cannot have hikers, you cannot have bicyclists and equestrians. My wife rides horses up there periodically, and they get spooked very easy. And you have a train wreck with a horse, you're going to hurt a lot of people, you're going to hurt bicyclists, and you're going to hurt, or worse, the person riding the bike, or riding the horse. The county, in my thought process, has procrastinated on this and needs to act, and they need to act quickly on it. Because every year it's, well, we're going to check into it, and we're going to do this, we're going to do some more checking with how we're going to do the trail and how we're going to fix the trail, and it goes year after year after year. And I've been, not before you folks, but I've been working on this for over 10 years. And I'm kind of getting tired of it, truthfully. I think I've been a good steward of the community. And a lot of the bicyclists, a lot of the hikers that come by, a lot of the equestrian people are good friends of mine. And I talk to them, meet them all the time, see them. I know them after 35 years. You get to know every way that goes up the trail. We do have one thing that's very close to my heart, is environmental impact in the area is significant. And it's not necessarily for any specific group, but it's significant because people are coming off of the trails, whether it's hikers, bicyclists, or it's equestrian. They're not using the trail entirely. They take a shortcut and they just come straight down. And I keep thinking, well, they were there for exercise, and yet they want to take a shortcut everywhere. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So those are the issues. I still have the liability. The overusage of the park is significant right now. It's grown in the last 3 to 5 years. I believe it's about probably 10 times more than it has been. On a weekend, I see an average of 150 people come past my property. Now, if it was in town, nobody would like that. They wouldn't like picking up the bottles every night. They wouldn't like picking up the dog poop every night, and that's what I do. Because I'm a good steward of the community up there, and I want everybody to enjoy it. But I've tolerated it. I think there's a double standard, and I think there's a lack of respect for my property.
We
Thank you.
appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. And we appreciate your stewardship, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Roy.
I'm Bob Ide. We live at 3838 Garden Creek Road. We're kind of on the other side of the Rotary Park. You go north instead of south when you get off of Garden Creek to go to our place. So we're not directly in the thick of what's going on up there. By the way, thanks for having this tonight, Commissioners, Chairman. Or I should say, I looked at a commissioner here, Parks Commissioners, I guess, is that the right way to approach it?
We're just people.
Anyway, I guess I have just two questions. The first one, we're not fully aware of everything going on up there, but on the bicycle movement on the Rotary trails, I'm not sure if I understand where that's coming from, is if there's a particular group that is here tonight that wants to speak on that and who's sort of lobbying for expanding the use of those trails up there. I guess that's my first question. And my second question is, and Eric can probably address that, it seems, as I recall, the original intent of that deed from the Kerr family to who was the owner of that land that gave it to the Rotary Park, as I remember, the intent of that was for pedestrian and equestrian. I don't know that for sure, but I just wanted to ask that question as well. That's all I had. Thank you.
So my answer will be that I'm sure your question will be answered before the night is over. Who's next?
My name is Ryan Radden. Thanks for having us here this evening. I'd just like to speak on kind of behalf of some of the mountain bikers that do ride on the trail. And yes, historically, I've lived here my entire life, and I can tell you historically the bridle trail has been used for mountain bikes. I mean, there's people that have been riding on it since probably the early 90s. So it's really nothing new that bikes have been on the trails. I think one thing that I'm not really sure where the mountain bike issue came out. There's probably maybe an entire year 10 or 12 people that ever actually ride the mountain bike trail. Mostly because it's a very technical trail. You have to be probably in pretty considerable shape to even ride up the trail. Like, I'll just be honest. There's not a lot of bike traffic on the trail. If you were to go up there and survey, like say in the middle of July, how many mountain bikers use that trail, in 1 week, you might not even find one person using that trail because there are so few mountain bikers on it. So I think that's probably one thing, that issue that needs to be explored. As far as multi-use trails, I mean, I've worked for the Forest Service. All the trails are multi-use. So, like, I don't really have an understanding of why somebody says, well, this is a trail that's only for horses and hikers and not mountain bikers, when we all well know that there are public trails out there that all three groups can happily use. I mean, they're all over the place. So I think that's something that really needs to be probably explored as far as, maybe public comments of like who's using the trails. Do you have run-ins with mountain bikers, vice versa? And I can tell you right now, I've been on that trail since I was in grade school. I've never seen one horse on that trail. I mean, I know they've been on there, but equestrian users, anybody who uses that trail can tell you there's not a lot of horses on that trail. I mean, you have people like Dick and Lisa Bratton. They use that trail every single morning. I see them I'll ride my mountain bike on it at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's the only realistic time you can ride on that trail without traffic on it. Those are the kind of people that I think it would behoove us to look into. What do they think about mountain bikers on the trail? Are they causing them problems? My mom, she's on the trail 4 or 5 times a week. She's never mentioned to me that there's been a problem with mountain bikes. And like I go back to the usage, because the number is probably less than 1/10 of 1% of people using those trails. So that's just kind of where I stand as far as use on it. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman and board members, thank you for letting us speak tonight. My name's Kathy Hyde, and I live at 3838 Garden Creek Road. I'm going to keep my portion very brief, and maybe this sounds really, really corny, but I just urge you to keep in mind how important private property rights are. I mean, throughout the world, it's a rarity to have private property rights, and we're just so fortunate as Americans to have that just be such a foundational part of our constitutional republic. And those private property rights, I think that's a huge issue with what we're addressing tonight. And if you could start your timer over for me, one of the neighbors up there, oh shoot, I forgot my glasses. One second.
You're fine.
I'm going to read a letter from one of the neighbors. He asked me to read it for him because he could not be here tonight. I'm James Little. I reside at 3337 Garden Creek Road. My house is located on Davis Way, just south of the county road a few hundred yards, and right below Howard Chrisman's cabin a few hundred yards. I researched Davis Way when I first bought my house in 2009. From what I was able to determine from talking to the county officials is the road, if you want to call it that, it's more like a 2-track, is not maintained by the county or anyone else for that matter. I personally maintain the road from the county road to my house using my personal tractor and paying for gravel out of my own pocket. The road was established, from my understanding, as an easement to access 3 lots in Loretta Heights subdivision, of which I own the middle lot where my house sits. I am opposed to opening up the bridle trail to mountain bikes for recreation for several reasons. Number 1, the trail is steep and has a tremendous amount of foot travel. Number 2, mountain bikers have shown in the past that they travel at a high rate of speed down the trail and Davis Way, subjecting humans, pets, and property to injury and damage. Number 3, Davis Way is not on any property maintained or owned by Rotary Park and travels through private property that should not be subjected to consideration for any type of travel other than what the original intent was for. Number 4, Rotary Park and the county have a proven track record of abusing the private property rights associated with the use of the bridle trail by continually allowing access out of the park through private property, then accessing the trail again west of Howard Chrisman's cabin, which has continued for over 10 years that I have lived there. For an example, there were 5 mountain bikers traveling down Davis Way at a high speed when they encountered my son driving up. My son saw them coming and stopped in the road before turning in the driveway, but the mountain bikers nearly collided with his vehicle. A confrontation ensued, and I could hear the loud voices and angry words from inside my house. When I went outside and asked what was going on, 4 of the 5 mountain bikers left. The one that stayed behind was in agreement that they should not be on the road and that they were traveling too fast. When they left, I walked up the road, and you could tell by their skid marks that they had applied their brakes more than 100 yards prior to the encounter with my son, yet was barely able to maintain control and avoid hitting his vehicle. Regards, James Little. So I brought copies for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Pat Bronston. I live at 3335 Garden Creek Road. I have had run-ins with bikers. They were not supposed to be and weren't allowed on the bridle trail. They come off the bridle trail and use Davis Road to get down to Garden Creek and defy anybody that tells them that they are on private property, private road. And they tell you, well, we've been doing it for 30 years and we're going to continue to do it. And if you don't like it, call the sheriff. I have had 2 or 3 occasions where I was going up Davis Road. And when I would come to a corner, here would come a couple of bikers going like the bat out of something or other, barely able to get out of my way. Had they hit me, I would have been sued. And I can guarantee you, if you open bicycles legally to that bridle trail, they're going to use Davis Road, whether they're supposed to or not, because they have rights that they just decide they're going to have, whether we like it or not. There's going to be a confrontation somewhere along the line where these bikers who come roaring off that thing do hit somebody either walking or probably in a vehicle. And there's going to be a massive suit. And there's no way that bicycles belong on a bridle trail. Bridle means horses and people. Now, the young man says he's never seen a horse. I've ridden horses up there for years. I've been in that area for 50 years. There's just no way that anybody is going to have a bicycle coming down and a horse coming up, or even people. And somewhere along the line, there's going to be a collision. Do not allow bicycles legally on that bridle trail. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Keith Wharton, and I reside at 2331 Shattuck Avenue here in town. And I didn't think I was going to make it tonight, so I got the opportunity to use your web venue to get you guys a letter. So I'm hoping you guys got that. Thanks for all that you do. Thanks for taking the time out of your lives and your personal lives to make some of these hard decisions and do what you do. So thank you. You've got my other comments that kind of outline some of the things that have been said on the pro-bike side of this debate. But I just wanted to issue just a quick reminder that I'm thankful for the times I've been able to use the bridle trail and to run into Howard Chrisman and to be able to stop and talk to him and be able to have a good experience. And that I think that we as a society, especially nowadays, tend to focus a lot on the negative and some of those bad things. I don't know that I can deny that any of these bad things that we've heard tonight have happened. But I can certainly tell you that possibly, and quite possibly, that for as many bad things have happened, there's been good things that have happened too. And I'm thankful for those experiences. It's fun to still to this day think that I can actually remember somebody's name when I see Howard Chrisman and be able to maybe even stop and talk to him again, and have on occasion. So obviously I can't be going down Davis Way that fast if I can stop and talk to somebody too. So thanks for your time. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ben Smith, and I'm here tonight representing the Central Wyoming Trails Alliance. First of all, thank the county and everyone involved for taking the time to look at the rules and regulations. It's overdue, and a lot of the language in there is ambiguous, outdated, and poorly phrased. It's important to remember that this discussion isn't just about the bridle trail. It's about all the regulations as a whole. We will submit our detailed list of all the suggestions for those regulations through the website and hope that the county takes those to heart in these decisions. With that said, the majority of my points will be about the bridle trail. Many people think of the Central Wyoming Trails Alliance, it seems, as a mountain bike club, which we are not. We're a nonprofit that advocates for soft surface, non-motorized, multi-use trails. Every trail that we've built so far has been open to all non-motorized traffic, both all hiking, running, and equestrian, and yes, bicycles. Everyone that's helped build those trails uses them in a different way. Like I said, the runners, horses, everyone enjoys them. Our prime example of this is up on Casper Mountain at the trail center up there. Rarely do you hear of any conflict with mountain bikers or horses or runners or anything like that. Ultimately, all of us that build those trails, we just want a place to get away, enjoy the beautiful landscapes of Wyoming, and help enhance the quality of life in our area. The Bridle Trail is one of Casper's true gems. It's only 10 miles from downtown, and you end up at a place that's got unmatched views and some of the best exercise in town, with a climb that averages an 11% grade for something like 1.5 miles or 2 miles. To lose access of any kind at that place would change the face of outdoor recreation in Casper forever. Without the proper easements in place, everyone involved, from the landowners to the users, have a right to voice their frustrations. We hope that your board urges the county commissioners to do everything that they possibly can to obtain the legal easements that they need to keep that area open for all to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Connie, 1028 South Beach. I'm going to take a little deeper dive into the regulations. So I don't know if I'm able to make this in 3 minutes, but I'll give her a go. I guess a couple of things. The bridle trail, obviously near and dear to my heart. Yeah, do I feel like multi-use is the appropriate avenue? Yeah, for sure. And for all the things that have been listed previously. I think, the hyperactive kind of sense of safety can really get in the way and can create some, provide some opportunities to try to isolate people from using the amenity. I guess we'll just keep it to the bridle trail for the moment. But again, traditional use, who knows? Was there a bicycle up on the bridle trail in 1950? Does anybody know that? I've been riding the bridle trail since the early 90s. So Ryan was right about the early 90s thing. But who says traditional use didn't include bicycles? Anyways, so we'll take a quick jump into some of these regulations. And one of some concerns, I don't know if you want to write this stuff down, if you want me to write this down, but there are some technical issues, and I think fat tire bicycle definition is overdone. Rim width is completely unnecessary, and I don't think someone who's going to come out and try to enforce fat tire issues are going to measure 2.16 wide rim. That's a 55 millimeter rim. It hasn't been used in 15 years for fat tire bikes, just as an FYI. 3.8 inch wide tires, just fine as far as that's concerned. Winter months, I think winter months is a tough one to define. November 15 to March 15, I think that needs to be more of an active management process by the supervisor of the parks. Years like we had this year, we're snow, we're grooming early in the process, and to say that maybe it was October 15th or something, but you have a month-long period of kind of gray area there, which is a little bit doesn't necessarily work all that well. Hazardous waste on, let's see, I guess one of the reasons I'm going through this is we have one opportunity to get this right. And so I think the Parks Department should be leveraged to the economic benefit of the community. So this is not just about groups fighting within ourselves. This is how can we use our amenities to better our community, to retain youth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I think we really need to get this right. Not create some unnecessary segregation, not create unnecessary confusion in enforcement. So anyways, we're gonna go back to hazardous waste. And the hazardous waste piece could put you in violation if you have a gallon of gas there for your generator, or RV antifreeze to winterize your RV if it's cold out. So I think those are kind of, yeah, anyways. Do you want me to keep going or no?
You can wind it up.
Some other language, and I'll jump to the Rotary Park closure. Outdoor recreation doesn't end in the wintertime. And in the wintertime, when you're getting off of work at 5 o'clock, 5:30, again, the hyperactive sense of safety. I think Rotary Park should be limited to Rotary Park, the original Rotary Park, and that's where the Rotary has kind of got their talons into it, which is fine. I think the county needs to make really smart decisions based on the progression and kind of the new views of outdoor recreation, how that stuff is accepted in this day and age. One real quick thing, Eric, with regard to waterways. I'm concerned there's no language in here that talks about commercial use permits. And I'm also concerned that the county has language in here that indicates they own or control waters. The county doesn't own or control any water within the state of Wyoming, just so that's clear. But there's a gob of stuff in here. I think this document's kind of way off from being ready. So I think it'd be really good to kind of take a step back and take a little closer look at this. This kind of smacks of the old document. But again, I'm going to urge you to step back from the segregated use, the no snowboard language, the no bike language, the no dog language. There are opportunities we have to find some other revenue sources, which we can certainly do. And there's opportunities we have to cut some costs that we can certainly do. And I think Casper Mountain Recreation, or the Casper Mountain property is ripe for that. We can include a lot more users and generate a lot more revenue up there, rather than trying to segregate it to just the Nordic Ski Club. So, thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Heather Irvin. I live at 6835 Rotary Park. Just as someone who goes into the park a lot with kids, with a child, I have a big concern about the bikes that come down a narrow canyon where there are parts of that drop off. If you have a bike coming down and kids going up and little kids are running up ahead of their parents on that trail, you're going to have kids jumping off the side of a cliff. You're going to have a bike going off, and you're going to have somebody crashing into each other. And those are all dangers that not only if you're on private property, you're putting those people, that's their liability, but also the city of Casper has a liability about when you're going to have some kid killed jumping off the side of that. I'd also like to see some actual, somebody patrolling the park in some way. There is so much dog waste. People do not clean up after their dogs. Their dogs are not leashed. Dogs run up and down that. Little kids jump off out of the way of dogs all the time. That's another place where it's very, very dangerous because people refuse to keep their dogs on leashes, and they also refuse to clean up after them. There's dog waste all in the stream up there. That needs to be policed. The fires, I don't know why there are fires allowed in a canyon. People walk away and leave those all the time. And every year, there's at least one time when the fire department has to go up and put out a fire, one of those small ones in the thing, because people leave them burning. People have no common sense up there. That's just a huge danger to all the surrounding property. So those are things I would like to see address, some of the safety, and to have some sort of patrol. I know the sheriffs could come up occasionally and wander through and make sure and have some sort of citation for people who are not following rules. And the rules should be clearly stated and marked at the beginning of the trail. And the trail should be clearly marked to keep people off other people's land as well. That'd be nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Take a second hit at this. The one thing, after listening to everybody, and I appreciate all the information from the bicyclist people and everybody, hikers and everybody, it's great to be able to talk about all this stuff and reason it out and get it all resolved and stuff like that. One thing I am concerned about with the Rotary Park in general is that we've seen a difference. We see the bicyclists are athletes. I mean, whether they're up there or not, these are athletes. I mean, you just don't go up that trail without being an athlete. Eric and I have talked numerous times up on that trail, and it is a tough trail. What I'm seeing right now is a shift in the population of the people that go up to Garden Creek. During the day, it's certain individuals that are hiking. During the evening, when we don't have the place locked down and a specific time to come and go, we have a whole different group of people up there. And the sheriffs have been called several times, and I've called them a couple of times myself. I've put out numerous fires up there. And the main reason is I go down there real quickly because people get ready to leave and they for some reason, they throw all their wood and their junk on the fire. The next thing I'm looking at is a mess down there, so I rush down there with milk containers and put out the fire and stuff. I think you're going to see a big shift if we don't resolve this, just like Heather said, by having somebody up there monitoring the park. If you don't have somebody up there doing this, you're going to have a serious problem in the future with not only drug use, but all kinds of vandalism in the area. And we see more and more of that because of the amount of people that are coming up there. And you see a shift of the people from the families and the athletes to folks that are up there for all the wrong reasons, and especially in the evening. And in the evening, I got no tolerance for them. In the day, I'm their best buddy. I'm the one that's allowing them to go through. I don't have any problem. You just have to get it resolved, and we're all going to be happy about it. But boy, be aware, Casper, all of us, you got a serious problem. If you don't monitor this park, it's going to be a meth problem. Thank you.
My name's Tyra Marlowe. I live at 1625 North Mill Creek, and it's not about the Rotary Park today for me. It's with the drone, proposed drone regulations. There's a few, I guess, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about drones. There's a lot of fear, for lack of a better term, about what drones are, what they can do. Yeah, there's always people doing nefarious things there with drones, spying on people, weaponizing them. I can guarantee you that is the minutia of the people out there doing that. Drones provide a huge benefit to what we can do in the realms of mapping, volumetric stockpile measurements, crop, NDVI mapping, a ton of stuff. What I've read, what you guys have proposed is pretty vague, and I've heard rumors that, saying no drones, period. That's a poor idea, in my opinion, that it will stifle aviation, generally speaking. You have a kid, looks up at the sky and sees the airplane. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter who always says, "Dad, there's a plane, there's a plane." And when I fly the drone in the backyard, she loves it. So I think banning drones completely is just not the route to go. There's lots of options that other cities, Breckenridge, Thornton, have put laws in place for their cities to allow drones that fall within the FAA regulations for sure. And then the city council has adopted those as, all right, this is what we allow. and what we can enforce. So I guess what I want to propose is just, let's have a actual sit-down conversation and some actual, laws that have worked in other cities and continue to work, that we can use for our county parks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, Michelle's taking minutes, so can you just say your name again? She didn't catch it.
Oh, Tyrell Marlowe?
Anybody else?
I'm Kathy Toops, 702 Divine, and you've heard from me before, and I know that Eric was mentioning how our land is barely touched by the bridle trail. Actually, 750 feet of our property is defined by the bridle trail. And I'm 62 years old, and my parents bought this when I was 3 years old. So they had it for 50 years, and then my husband and I bought it for 10. We got married up there 40 years ago. I ran down the bridle trail all the time as a kid. I love the area, okay? I love bicycles. I rode bicycles, went on a 6-week bike trip. But anyway, the reason that we have had such a bad taste in our mouth for the bicyclists is we don't see that they ride up the mountain. We see that they go up in 2 cars, and one goes up to the top and one's at the bottom, and they come bombing down. And they bomb down through our property, and we're not on this is before the bridle trail. And so when my husband and I own 38 acres of land on Castor Mountain, half of which, 18 acres, is bordered by the bridle trail. The southern 20 acres was owned by Ole Folkstead, and there's no easement there at all. In 2010, when my husband and I bought the property from my parents, who were 78 and 79, we found that bicycles had been riding around our gate and fence that we had posted no trespassing. When we put up signs and gates, they tore them down. We found a map, the map that Eric put up here that had all the different colored lines. If you would have looked at the bottom, you would have seen it showed it going through our land. And so that was never legally allowed. So I called the county attorney, Bill Knight, in 2011 to complain and to seek reassurance that the bicycle group could not extend the bike trail across private property without legal easement. And he told me that Natrona County could seek a right-of-way across our land by eminent domain. Needless to say, that really got me started. That's why I'm still here. At the first Parks Board meeting I attended in 2011, there were about 60 trail users, mostly hikers who were told we were trying to shut down the bridle trail completely, and we weren't. We're happy to have people walk and ride, no, not ride, walk and ride horses on the bridle trail. That we have no problem with. But anyway, but posting a map with trails across our land didn't go over real well. Anyway, so here are my considerations. Private property is a sacred concept in America and not to be treated lightly. Yet many of our elected officials do not protect our private property. I do not see people ride their bicycle up the mountain, only down. When they drive to the top and ride down, they use 2 cars, and this is about cheap thrills, not getting exercise. We have seen a lot of vandalism demonstrating a lack of respect for signs and fences. Eminent domain is traditionally used in interests of public health, water, sewer, or public safety. The liability cost of increased accidents should be a concern to the county. There are thousands of acres of public property that are available for serious biking, including a paved road from Hogadon Ski Area to the city of Casper and beyond. An environmental impact study should consider the effect of soil erosion caused by vehicular traffic on hillsides, as well as disturbances to fragile ecosystems that support wild flora and fauna, from the top to the base of Casper Mountain. If bikes are allowed, then electric bikes are next, and they have already been suggested. Then there'll be dirt bikes, then snowmobiles. Motor vehicles are allowed and make it easier for trespassers to drive right up to our doorstep, break in, and steal or destroy private possessions. Even though our land is just bordered by the bridle trail, we and other landowners need to be protected by the county liability insurance against problems caused by the public. In summary, we welcome hikers and horseback riders who respect park department rules and regulations, but as private property landowners whose property shares a boundary with this historic public trail, we are against opening access to bicycles and the negative consequences that are easy to predict.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up, don't be shy.
Good evening. My name is Chris Parks. I live at 3461 Indian Scout Drive. I'm kind of here on behalf of myself and also organization I'm part of I'm on the board for, and that's Fat Fish Racing. Bit of background on Fat Fish is it was organized by two individuals who love to ride their bikes about 10 years ago, and one of those individuals still is here in town today. And they started this organization, and it grew from, probably 10, 12 riders to, on average, every summer we have about 130 participants at each one of our races. We do a race series, 7 races throughout the summer, and it's free to the kids. Any participant 18 and under, it's free. And it's also very affordable for the public as a whole. We only charge $30 for the whole summer for every series. It's quite amazing the outreach we get with the community. It is tremendously supported by businesses throughout the community. They help fund the race series, and and actually the last couple of years we've been able to give away $500 to a kid at each race to help get kids on bikes and help promote that. We figure probably well over 1,000 individuals have participated in the Fat Fish Racing event over the years. So it's a huge community organization, and it's just amazing the participation we get and the fun that people have throughout the community. With that, I'm an avid user of the bridle trail. Our main concern is limiting access, and we promote multi-use trails. I've been mountain biking in the area for the last 10 years and have nothing but great experiences on the trails, meeting people, both hikers, runners, all kinds of different users, and nothing but great experiences. We, as an organization with Fat Fish, we promote proper stewardship of trail use, and proper trail etiquette, and the right-of-way, and the horses and the pedestrians have the right-of-way on those trails. And so we encourage that, we teach that. We want to make sure that people enjoy the outdoors safely. With the idea of limiting access to the bridle trail for bicycles, I think would be a detriment to our community. For me, it's the most enjoyable trail in the area. It provides a unique challenge, and it's a rewarding to be able to climb that trail and to be able to ride down it safely. When I go down, I purposefully do it in a manner that is safe, not only for myself, but for anybody that's coming up the trail or coming down the trail. I know that bicycles on that trail can be done safely. It can, like I said, I've never had any negative experience on that trail and the multiple times that I've been able to be on it. So I just encourage, keep it multi-use, you know. Give that opportunity for the community, and it's a great thing, and I would hate to see it go away. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Just one quick comment here. Hear a lot about multiple use from the bike proponents here tonight, and I respect that, but it sounds like they're already abusing what shouldn't be there. You know, it's great that they've all done that since the 1990s and maybe beyond, but that is basically not what that bridle trail was intended for. And I think the law is really what it boils down to, and what you guys decide. And, you know, the private property owners, you open a big can of worms, because if they won't let bicycles through, you're going to open up a big war up there. And I think the job of this Parks Commission is to protect life, liberty, and property, just like our republic was founded. Thank you.
Tracy Lamont, 9855 Crimson Dawn Road. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight on them, but I'm confused here. You know, I like to think myself a little bit of a mountain historian, being the fossil that I am, being almost 70 years old now, and hearing these stories since I've been 8 years old, and being introduced to the mountain at that time, and hearing so many stories from the legendary Bob Adams that the Archer Range is named after, who was the parks manager when everything was put into place up there, basically. And Paul Manley, who was my dad's business partner for eons, and he was like a second father to me. He was, I think, probably one of the group of the second Parks Board members in the rollover from the original one that started, I think, in 1956. And then, of course, Tom Bechtel, and they all are all gone now, but for some reason they drafted me to carry the torch thereafter. And I think I found my replacement in Doug Irvine and a few others back here, and Eric and some of the others, to pass my files on to. I think a lot of the information I have belong in the Wyoming Heritage Center up here at the college, or the History Center, or I'm going to give them to the American Heritage Center, down to University of Wyoming, because I shared with Eric some maps from Garden Creek that were the subdivisions from the Littlefield, and there's some interesting information in there, the vacation of all the papers of that, and the reestablishment of the the Brookside subdivision. And I came up with quite a few easements. I spent an afternoon or almost a full day down in the records room, and Dawn and her helper were very gracious in helping me, and come up with a lot of documents, and I've shared those with Eric with the instructions for him to share them with all the bike people. Anybody that wants access to them, I took those maps up, gave them to the map room, gave them to my friend Julie up there, so they're a matter of record at this point in time. I would hope we do the same thing, Eric, with everything that the IT people have found too. The more information we get to the table, and that needs to be the next step. You're going to fall out of your chair, Roy, but we need to go back one more time to the fairgrounds facility out there, the extension office. Let's set up a table with all the maps, all the easements. Let's have a copier available out there. Let's have a night of just learning between now, and I think May is too early. I think we need an on-the-ground, whoever wants to volunteer to go up there, because I've never walked the bridle trail, and I want to be able to walk it with all the landowners' permission all the way to Hogadon. If it takes 2 times to get it done, I might have to have somebody loan me their oxygen bottle to get up there. But I'm confused, and I want to see a show of hands from the people. And I'm a bicycler. I'm not as avid as these guys are. I'd be pushing my bike up the bridle trail, I have to be honest with you, but I'd be coasting and probably going as fast as, because I'm a speed freak. I'm an old motorhead. I'd be wanting to come down that trail as fast as I could, and I'd be in these people's bad graces too. I've been there and done that. But I think we need to all go up there and have a work session. And what area are we talking about? I'm totally confused, and I go back to 1958 on that mountaintop. Is there a lower bridle trail canyon? And is there an upper bridle trail canyon, or is there an upper and a middle and a lower? Can you bicyclers explain that to me? When you're talking about the bridle trail, are you talking about everything south of Brookside?
Tracy, we have maps available.
I'm curious.
We'd be happy to get you a copy.
Can you bring that map back up here, if you would, please? And then one more question, okay?
Yeah, I'll just have you wrap up and we can
I
get you a
know,
map
some of these
after.
people have been up here now twice, okay? And you know I bring a lot of experience to the party, and I wasn't even going to talk. So I can solve a lot of problems here, okay? And there's some things we won't get done tonight, and I'll bring it back to the next park board meeting and the Board of County Commissioners meeting. But Eric, I need for you to bring up Wyoming statute 18-102-
Tracy, we're not going to do that tonight.
Okay, that's
This is
fine.
for public input.
For the next meeting, because this comes to what we're here for tonight. This isn't the Natrona County Parks Board. This is the Natrona County Parks Advisory Committee, is it not?
Yeah, I just need you to wrap it up so that we can get more people up to
Please
comment.
answer my question, Roy.
We're listening. This is a public comment session.
Okay, but,
I'll talk to you after the meeting if you want.
okay, that's fine on them, but that's a question that comes up because it says right in your rules and regulations. And please don't override me here. Roy, I'm trying to clean up confusion, and I know I'm irritating you when I say hello. So there's 4 other board members here that I think would like to probably hear from me. I'm asking the question because it defines board as the Board of County Commissioners. It does not define the Parks Board in your new proposed rules and regulations.
Okay, so this is the second time I ask. Why don't you go ahead and sit down? We'll have a regularly scheduled Parks Board meeting, second Thursday of February.
So I can't
and
ask my other questions about
No,
the
this
rules
is,
and
this,
regulations.
that's not what the purpose of this meeting is. So this
What is
for
the purpose of
public-
this meeting? To talk about the bridle trail?
Public comment on.
I'm
the
trying to
rules and
make a
regulations.
public comment. I'm asking questions to make
Every-
the comments too.
Tracy, everybody's been given 3 minutes. You've had your 3 minutes.
Why don't you just ask the 2 deputies to have them removed from the meeting then? Okay? This is a public meeting, is it not? Why are you restricting me when I have good things to say, Roy? I'd like an answer. Please let me finish. Howard's been up here twice. Mr. Ide's been up here twice. Kathy read a letter for somebody second. I'm not the enemy here. I'm the guy that's trying to help you fix things. Okay?
Please have a seat.
Thank you. Would you like the sheriff to remove me?
Tracy, we don't need to do this.
No,
Please have a
I
seat.
need to do this. I came to speak.
And you've been given.
I
the
came
3
to ask
minutes.
that question.
I'm not.
Your
arguing
timer
with you
didn't even go
anymore.
off, Roy.
Yes, it did.
You have neglected, you have discriminated against me to the fullest tonight. Eric, I'll be in your office tomorrow to file a bona fide complaint. Thank you very much, Roy. It's called liberty. And it's called private property rights. I will not be suppressed. Thank you very much.
James Peterson, 743 East 5th Street. I just want to thank Eric and Brooke for doing everything they're doing to give you guys the information that you need to take to the County Board of Commissioners. I'm hopeful that you will consider one thing, and that's the rule of law, especially for property owners. And that's all, and I want to thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to quickly echo a concern I have that Mr. Ide brought up, is that when the cyclists say they are already been using this park, they're pretty much thumbing their nose at the law already. And then they say, we want to follow these guidelines. But what they're saying is, we're doing what we want anyway. And we've been doing it. And therefore, you should continue to allow us to do it. Instead of starting out trying to change a law, they started out doing whatever the heck they pleased and violating people's property rights and making the trails unsafe. And I have seen cyclists come bowling down and had kids jumping out of the way. And just, it's your lucky stars that they didn't jump the wrong way or that nobody was hurt when I saw it. But they do come down really fast. It is for a thrill. What they want to do is come down from the top to the bottom and get to say, I did this really fast and it was really awesome. And what they're not doing is riding up to get exercise. And they are already breaking the law or violating the spirit of a bridle trail, which is for hikers and horseback riders only. And by going ahead and doing it now the way they want, they've pretty much said they don't care what the rule is, which is another reason we need patrol up there so that they are caught when they're violating the rules. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You don't have to wait for us, just come on.
Well, I was
Keep it rolling here.
I'm Sandra Wharton. I am not a avid biker. I love to bike, but I can't personally make it up the bridle trail myself, so I don't ride the bridle trail, but I know people who do, and when my kids and I enjoy walking up the bridle trail, we have never had any issues with any of the bikers that have been up there. The question, I think maybe I'm not understanding completely, but whenever we hike the bridle trail, I'm just never able to understand. I guess I'm a little confused about how they're able to zip down the bridle trail, because it's not really a trail that you can go fast down, I guess. I'm a little confused, and maybe that's just when they say they've seen this, is it because they're not talking about the actual bridle trail that we're hiking on? Because I guess I'm just a little confused about that. So if there needs to be some kind of actual look at what the map is, I guess that's where I'm a little confused, because I don't ever see how that could be a possibility if you are actually on the bridle trail. If they are on the property, then yes, that's something different, but the bridle trail is not something you can just zip up and down on. It's not possible. Even hiking, I can barely do that. It's a rough trail, and it's fun, and I've enjoyed it. I do agree, though, that there needs to be some regulations, because I wouldn't hate for such a great trail to be abused in a way, and I'm grateful that someone is taking care of that when fires are not extinguished properly. So I'm grateful that someone is willing to do that, but I would hope that just because of the actions of a few people wouldn't ruin the opportunity for others to enjoy. And when it says recreation, I don't think that, when I looked up the word and the definition, I was a little confused at why it's only recreation for hikers and then horseback riders. Why wouldn't that include mountain bikers as well? And I know that they have an issue with possible it going further than that, but if you take away recreation in whatever form that someone might enjoy, then you're taking away a fun opportunity for someone to enjoy that area, what it was intended for recreation. So I think that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing that I would like to just make a quick comment before we get another person up. You can go ahead and come on forward if you want. As I understand it, Eileen, maybe you can, are we able to put maps and documents on that website for people to look at? Certainly. And I believe that that is going to be part of this process going forward, is we will include those materials as we have them available. So go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yeah, we do have that ability, and I think at this point, we're trying to sort through what we have. There's just the volume of information in terms of maps, deeds, historical documents is immense. And I think there's a lot of duplicate maps as well. I mean, there are subdivision maps, there's, subdivisions that have been vacated, we've got some maps from 1966 that Worthington Lenhart did on the trail when the county took over management from the city. So rather than just kind of shotgunning them out there without any kind of rhyme or reason, we're trying to kind of go through that, and the intent is to get those on there so there'll be public access to them.
Right, so that'll be part of the process going forward. We want to make that material public so that everybody can get a look at it. So I just want to say that.
My name's Michael Reed, Casper, Wyoming. I wasn't really going to talk tonight, but to kind of come to your point about people coming down the hill fast, they are trespassing is what they're doing. So they're trespassing from the top, Hogadon, and coming across private property.
Have you direct your comments to the board, please? Thank you.
Sorry. And coming across private property and dropping onto the trail. I lived in Steamboat. I spent a lot of time with mountain bike trails and hiking trails. And they designate a hiking trail or a mountain bike trail because when you're coming down the hill fast, and I've done both. I like to mountain bike and I like to hike, but I don't like to hike with mountain bikers. Just because I have been on both sides of the scenario. When I'm coming down a trail and you come over a hill and there's people walking on the other side, then it's bad for everybody. And I've been both the person that was biking and the person that almost got run over. And on the mountain, unfortunately, hiking with my kids, we were on the bridle trail and we had a couple of people decked out in helmets, body suits, and special bikes with big shocks that had bombed down, trespassed through Tubes and bombed down and almost killed my kids. Now, people can say that all the time and you can exaggerate how your kids were almost killed, but if they had hit my kids, they would have killed them. So, and there were multiple of them, and when the first one almost hit my kid, I knocked off the second one off their bike. So, it becomes a very aggressive, agitated environment. And so, if you can ride your bike up it, then that's a completely different scenario than people that are going to drop onto it. But you can't ever prove it when you get to the bottom. They'll say, well, I rode my bike up it. And you can't say, well, or unless you have a picture of them coming across wherever. But so that whole environment just doesn't need to be there. Doesn't need to be an aggressive, agitated environment. There needs to be a mountain bike trail and there needs to be a hiking trail. And hopefully someday we'll have multiple trails coming off the mountain, going on to public land, from public land to public land. And there can be scenarios where there's mountain bike trail in that. But for me, coming across my property, I just don't want to see, I definitely don't want to see people bombing down with helmets and gear and a whole bike set up to go 50 miles an hour down a dirt path. That's just my point, so I'll stop.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do this again. I didn't realize this was going to be entirely a bridle trail discussion. So I guess I want to address what you're talking about is shuttling, and that's when you drop somebody off the top and they go down. And I don't think anybody here probably is advocating for the notion of shuttling the bridle trail. Howard's seen us ride up, and that's what we do, right? It's riding the loop, and you're earning the ability to ride down the trail when you ride up. Nobody's advocating for trespassing or gratuitous trespassing. I think another big issue is we're trying to make this a private property rights issue. And that is that notion on the bridle trails just become a little bit diluted. And that's the problem. I think that's why we need to go through all these documents and figure out, are we violating people's private property or are there easements? Is there access on this property that's public and perpetual? And if you look at some of the early stuff, you'll see that there were easements either 33 feet wide, 100 feet wide, and for the benefit of the residents. And the only stipulation on that easement was, one of them was that the county maintains it, which is probably a major failing point of the county. They really haven't maintained it. I think Ryan Radden was right when he made comments about how limited the bicycle use in the bridle trail it is. Super limited, and when you combine that with the amount of work that the mountain bikers put into trying to maintain the bridle trail, the return on that limited amount of use is pretty high for the rest of the users. There is no question that the largest abuse is done by the hikers. There is a lot of corner cutting on the bridle trail, and yeah, the county has been pretty negligent as far as getting signage up there, creating diversions, and making the trail the path of least resistance, and it's not. And I've watched Howard discuss with people a number of times just cutting corners and walking where it looks like there's a trail, the trail's not there, and so yeah, it is creating a pretty serious erosion issue. But this isn't really the result of bikes and or horses. This is a result of the hikers and misuse and a lack of information. So again, I don't think anybody's advocating for shuttling the bridle trail and bicycles. That's not where this is going. And it's also not about abusing people's private property rights. A lot of us are property owners, and a lot of us have easements on our properties, and you have to respect those easements. And so I guess I just feel like, while I feel for the landowners, I think this just, again, the last meeting said this needs to come to a head. We need to get this figured out. Do the residents have access to that trail system, or do they not? I mean, really, that's at the end of the day, it's the access piece and really defining what is, if this really is a private property issue, or is this a public access issue? Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Come on, don't be shy. Okay.
Just to clarify some things that have been mentioned tonight. One, the Littlefield easement that Eric just mentioned was specifically for a bridle path in 39-ish. And a bridle path is obviously for horses and pedestrians. The other thing is that there's been a lot of misapprehension that bicycles are currently allowed on the bridle trail. When the rules and regs adopted in 2012 specifically classify bicycles under vehicles, and the bridle trail says no vehicles as defined in this document. So since 2012, at least, if not before, bicycles have not been permitted, so all use of bicycles since 2012 has been illegal. And that's just one thing that I find distressing in this conversation, where we don't seem to be able to recognize the current state as this is what has been permitted and this is what is clearly defined in the rules, and we need to be able to have the notion that when we do make rules and changes, that they're going to be generally adhered to by the community. And a lot of things we've heard recently is that even when that is pointed out that is currently disallowed, that just seems to be ignored. And that's distressing from a law-abiding citizen's point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Going once? Going twice? You able to invite the board and or Commissioner Kaufman? Do you have any?
I just want to take a quick second and say thank you, I'm sure, which is what most of the Parks Board members will say too, but it really is inspiring. And I don't know, for our average commission meeting, we probably have 5 people, so I love coming to the park stuff because it always brings people out for sure. Obviously, we have things to work through. Tomorrow, Tim and I are meeting with Adbay and Doug Irvine, and we will start working towards the questions for the survey that we want to administer. Again, Eric mentioned how you can solicit your feedback through the county. We value it. I think what Eric Ani said is absolutely correct. We have one shot, and I'm very committed to getting it right. So thank you all for being here. It only helps move this process forward. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the chance to say a few words.
Cool, we'll just move across. Stuart?
What she said. Now, thank you guys for coming out. I really appreciate it. Lots of landowners, lots of bike riders, even a comment on the drones. Please keep those coming. We don't know, sometimes what's going on in these rules and that. We don't know what your opinions are. I'm out. Okay, I'm done. We need your comments. Please do come to these Parks Board meetings. Without your input, we have a hard time, doing our jobs. So thank you.
Yep, thank you all for coming. I think there's been a lot of great comments here tonight, which is very helpful. So continue your feedback and come into the meetings. Thank you.
Yeah, I just thank you again for coming, and there's a lot of issues that were brought up, and there's a lot more in here that we still need to talk about, so let's bring the comments forward. Thank you.
I do want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and I know this is a little different format than we usually have, where you get to talk, but we don't get to take questions, and that's a little different. So I do appreciate everything that everybody has said tonight. I do encourage you to come to our next Parks Board meeting, where we will have an opportunity to answer some of your questions, but that's not what this meeting was designed for tonight. We wanted to make sure that we gave everybody an opportunity to say what was on their mind and tell us what their concerns were. We have a pretty diverse group of individuals in this room tonight, out in the audience, and a lot of background and a lot of different interests and everything else. And it's good to hear everybody come forward and be willing to say what they're thinking in a public meeting, where we can actually listen to it and glean that information, and I do appreciate that. So look forward to seeing some of you at the next Parks Board meeting, and we will continue to work on this and see what we can do about cleaning up some of the verbiage in there and making sure that we do what's best for the county. Thanks.
So just to echo a couple of the comments, this process is important. We want this, as has been stated a couple times, we want this to be done right. So we do have one shot at it, and we really don't want to come back next year and go through another revamp of the rules and regulations. So we have some skin in the game. I appreciate everybody coming here. I appreciate the passion. That's the reason that we're up here, because we're passionate about this. And I have to say that's one of the things I love about this area. So thank you all for coming. And with that, I think we'll call this meeting adjourned.